Right, we're gonna get started on chapter 5. Okay, and again, if you're going to the last page for this of the textbook for this, you're looking at the reasons why Germany was defeated in World War II. Okay, and in the textbook, it will present you with three reasons. Right, three reasons on page 163. Three reasons for Germany's defeat in World War II. So this would be similar to the previous chapter when we actually talk about reasons for something happening. So it is a cause and effect kind of thing, and basically, basically we are just focused on the reasons for a certain issue happening. So that's what we've been looking at for chapter 4, and that's what we'll be looking for chapter 5, 6, and 7. So this is for just the European part of things. It is the Japan part of things happens in chapters 6 and 7. So this is focused solely on how Germany was actually defeated in World War II. Okay. Yeah, no. So I will start with something else in class. So this is purely contents coverage. So the inquiry question here is: was the entry of the USA in 1941 the main cause of Germany's defeats in World War II? Now, before we even start the chapter, right, something that you can think about, reasons for, let's say if you play a sport, okay, reasons why one side would win over the other side. It usually would cover how one side is stronger, and then after that you look at the other side, the opponents, how they were weaker, right? So the most logical reasons would always cover the strengths of one side and the weaknesses of the other side. So that's basically something that we will be doing for the reasons for defeats, both for Germany and for Japan as well. Okay. So the three reasons. Okay, the first one is on U.S. entry into war. The second one would be on German weaknesses, and finally the third one is a tricky one. It's called an Allied resistance. So in this first part of the video, we're just going to cover entry of the USA into the war. So first of all, you need to know that the USA practiced isolationism. Okay, uh, they didn't actually really wanted to join in World War One. And if you recall the facts about World War One, it started in 1914, ended in 1918. USA actually only joined in 1917. Okay, so after that, when they signed the Treaty of Versailles, remember their attitude or their general policy was non-interference, was isolationist, was basically I'm selfish, I do me, and nobody else. So that's why they weren't part of the League of Nations as well, because they believed that this was not their problem, or rather, whatever that was happening outside of the world wasn't their problem at all. So, despite escalating tensions, as we have covered in chapter 4, okay, in the 1930s, they still said, not our problem. Spanish Civil War, not our problem. Italian invasion of Abyssinia, not our problem. And in fact, in 1937, they went as far as to publish this thing called the Neutrality Act, which affirmed USA's refusal to become involved in a foreign war. Now, think about it today, right? I think the the attitude of the USA is quite the opposite of what was happening in 1937. And their attitude is their desire to become involved in every single foreign war that isn't really any of their business. So, like for example, the Iraq War or Iraq War, depending on how you pronounce it, was something that they are still involved in, and the current president is still trying to get them out of it. I stand corrected if I'm wrong about these facts. I've been following the news about this very long, drawn out war. So, yeah, that is the opposite. The USA's attitude today as compared to last time is really very different. Now, however, the president, he did warn that the USA would have to face the menace of Germany, Italy, and Japan if needed. And when they are called upon to do something about it, they might do it. And he also went on to further make a speech in October 1937 to say that war-mongering nations would need to be quarantined. Okay, so basically, a country like Germany and Italy would there will be a need to quarantine them if there were any more aggressive actions coming forth from them. So, although he didn't want war, he began to prepare the USA for such a possibility of war breaking out. So, their indirect involvement in the war, they are like, I don't want to be in, but I want to be in. That kind of attitude that you have when you are young, and then you are like thinking, do I want to join this group of friends? You want to be in, but then you're scared that you embarrass yourself when you join them. That kind of stuff. That is generally the USA's attitude. So the USA, having the desire to still want to be involved in the war, they decided to still help out, okay, to help the allies in anything that they need. So the first policy they had was cash and carry. Now take note of the date. The cash and carry date is 21st September 1939. By then the war has already started. Britain and France had declared war on Germany after they invaded Poland on 1st September 1939. Did I say 38 just now? Okay, so this 21st September 1939. Okay, the cash and carry policy. So what does this mean? It allows Britain and France to buy goods from the USA if they paid cash in full and provided their own transports. So you might see these kind of sales in, although I don't think it's quite common now. These kind of sales happening in departmental stores, like for example, when they put up a cash and carry sale, basically you go there, you pay in cash, and instead of waiting for them to deliver something to you, you got to carry the entire thing and bring it home. So you might thinking, yeah, obviously everybody does that. But what if you're buying an appliance, right? So you cash and carry a refrigerator back home. Yeah, that if you can do that, yeah, then go ahead and take it back, right? So that's the cash and carry sale. So the part about you bring your fridge home, basically, what USA was telling Britain and France is that, look, you want to buy stuff from me, I'm willing to sell, but I'm not going to deliver them for you. You have to provide your own transport, come and collect the stuff you want to buy, and then bring it back. And you got to realize that that's troublesome because that is, yeah, they have to cross the Atlantic Ocean to the USA to collect the goods and then go back again. So the Americans wanted to protect their own people, and they basically said that the commercial ships were not allowed to enter conflict zones. So then why risk your life selling things to other people and then cause yourself to die, right? But eventually, that policy is going to be changed, although it took about 1.5 years later, in March 1941, to the Land Lease Act. So the president could now supply weapons, food, and equipment to any country whose defense the president thought was vital to the national security of the USA. Now, whenever any country uses national security reasons for something, it can potentially get a bit dangerous. Like, for example, Hitler using the Reichstag fire to claim, oh, our national security is under threat. The communists want to burn everything. Therefore, we need to pass the Enabling Act. So that national security is always something of a danger kind of interpretation, right? And any dictator like Hitler or Stalin could have abused it. And the biggest change here is that now payment could be deferred and need not be made in cash. So when we say cash and carry, literally no cash, no money, no money, no cash, no goods. I know some of you, being students, you might not be able to understand the concept behind this, but adults, we have credit cards. So we don't necessarily pay cash all the time. We use credit cards to purchase stuff and then we can pay later. Okay. And so payment could be deferred and they did not actually need to pay in cash. So what do they pay in? Like, I give you 2 cows for 1 weapon. Yeah, I don't think they paid in cows, but there are other things that other than cash that might be precious. Like for example, oil would be a precious commodity that could be used in replacement for cash. Okay, and finally, they do not need to provide their own transports. It really saves them a lot of trouble. Imagine you're fighting a war, you still have to arrange for transportation for delivery of the necessities of the war. It's going to make things very difficult for you. Okay, so now for this factor regarding all the involvement of resources, okay, there's an entire movie for that. In fact, it's one that I can recommend because it doesn't have I believe it doesn't have an NC-16 or M18 rating. It came out last year during the pandemic. Greyhound. The actor is Tom Hanks, very famous for quite a few movies. If you know who is Tom Hanks. Okay, so the movie is called Greyhound. Go check it out. It's about how he was the commander of American um, naval troop that was um, escorting a whole bunch of ships across the Atlantic Ocean while they are delivering the weapons, food, and equipment for World War II. And then they had to deal with the German submarines who were trying to pick them off and attacking them. Okay. And also, Roosevelt argued that USA should be the arsenal of democracy, not the football club arsenal. Okay, arsenal here meaning to say, when we use the term arsenal, is basically, okay, in your textbook it has a definition: the equipment or methods that a person can use to help one achieve his or her goal. So basically, it's like a whole collection of weapons. Okay, so this isn't exactly a it isn't exactly a clear policy, but it's basically something that the President Roosevelt argues that USA should be. Okay, that means to say that the USA should actively support democratic nations in their fights against the Axis powers. So after France fell in 1940, Britain was the only major allied country left fighting Germany. So Roosevelt pushed for USA to increase its level of aid to Britain. And what kind of aid? They actually gave Britain 50 old destroyers. Destroyers are a type of navy ship that is used in wartime in return for 8 naval bases in the Caribbean. So the naval bases would be important for them to park whatever resources they need there for whatever defense of USA. Secret dialogues were held between Churchill and Roosevelt on how the USA could support Britain, and Roosevelt also sought to expand and re-equip the US Army and Navy and to step up rearmament. So basically, all their actions are going against what they were saying, their official policy of isolationism. They basically want to be involved, but they are, at this moment, still not quite fully, definitely involved yet. Okay. Now, there were other forms of aid provided for the Allies. They provided escorts roles for Allied convoys at sea. So this is the one that the movie basically covers, which I will try to show a bit of in class. And the USA also imposed economic sanctions on Axis powers, which would deprive them of resources needed for the war efforts. Now, what this means would basically be depriving countries like Japan oil, which would be an important resource. Okay, you will see that oil would come up again when in the defeat of Germany under German weaknesses. Okay, because it is a very important resource, and this would affect Japan much later, and we'll talk about that in chapter 6. Okay, so now, all that we have discussed up to this point is before USA formally enters the war. So their assistance, they did help out. They did play a role in enabling the Allies to survive until they formally entered the war. And remember, they're hanging by a thread, the Allies, because Germany was very successful. Hitler was very successful in conquering most of Europe by then, and Britain being the only country left standing. I think they basically survived because they were not on land and they were an island, not far away, but pretty far away from where Hitler's army was able to conquer. So they are the only country left standing. It's up to USA to step in. Now, we'll study about this in greater detail in the next chapter, or is it chapter 7? Next 2 chapters, okay? Now, Japan attacked US Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor. There's an entire movie on this. It's a 3-hour long love story. So because it's a love story, yeah, it's definitely not NC-16 or M-18. The director of the movie is Michael Bay. He's the director of Transformers, and everything blows up, and I think you all might enjoy it. Although I fell asleep watching Transformers. Anyway, so for that movie, you would get to see the historical events happening in there. It covers some parts of chapter 7 as well. Okay, so when they attacked Pearl Harbor, they had their reasons for doing so, which I will not go into great detail right now because it's covered in the next few chapters. So after they attacked Pearl Harbor, USA declared war on Japan. Okay, the following day, and because Japan were allies with Germany, so essentially Hitler had to declare war on USA, which was something that would actually be a bit, you know, it will be the downfall for Hitler. Yeah, Downfall, the other movie that's relevant to this chapter. So the USA formally enters the war in World War II, and the entry of USA would eventually contribute to Allied victory in the war. So remember, before that, the USA, even though they were participating in part of it, right, all their involvement is not formal yet. Okay, they don't have people literally on the ground fighting. So right now, they're going to contribute vast resources and manpower. You will realize that one of the themes, right, of the defeats of these countries would be centered around resources. It's always who has more resources. It's not about how good a fighter you are. It's about how much resources you have. So let's say if you are an elite commando who can run like 10,000 kilometers for 10 days straight without collapsing, but if you don't have any resources supporting you, if you don't have any weapons, you don't have any ammunition, yeah, you're dead essentially. So resources are very important in actually contributing to the defeat. So USA, being the world's largest producer of goods at the time, they were able to convert their factories for military production faster than the Axis powers. And the USA also sent large numbers of military personnel to help in allied military campaigns. Now we talk about resources, and so the USA being able to convert their factories for military production, which means to say that the factory previously could be producing cars, and then now they're converting it to produce tanks instead. And also, they are able to produce all the weapons that's needed for military production. And in terms of military personnel, basically you send in more soldiers. Okay, so in terms of this particular factor, if you look at your textbook, on now I will need to direct your attention to the textbook, okay, because most of you actually just ignore this conveniently. So if you look at page 144 of your textbook, right, and for those who are like really literally lazy to do so, right, here you go. Right, if you look at the textbook on page 144, you will see that there are numbers given, okay. Look at the soldiers and then look at the numbers given. There were 11 million soldiers provided by the USA as compared to Germany's 12.5 million. So basically, do your math and add it up, and you will realize that the resources provided by USA was really a lot, and it really did help them in overcoming Germany. Okay, okay, and so this helped to actually solve the Allied military shortages, and it also strengthened the Allied war machine in dealing with Germany. Right, and also they collaborated with the Allies on military strategies. There was they participated in military strategies to help Allies achieve control of the air and the sea. And so this prevented essential resources from reaching Germany and gave Allies greater success at bombing German cities and Axis military targets such as synthetic oil plants and oil fields. Now, it might all sound like Greek to you, but you need to have some form of basic understanding of how to fight a war. So then when we say control of the air and the sea, that is important because if you have control of the air, it means to say that you can fly. It means to say that you have control over that particular area in which you're flying your airplanes over, and that you are actually doing what you need to do. Okay, so what we are trying to understand here is that when you have the control of the air, and that particular airspace belongs to you, there can't be any other enemies flying anything that they want over that particular area. And the same thing applies for the sea. Okay, now you don't need to actually understand the exact military strategies concerning World War II. However, for me, I think those are interesting. Like I said, you don't have to understand, but then that's where again you refer to your textbook on page 145. Okay. Now, usually anything that is like differently colored, that's where you just conveniently ignore them. Please do not do so. Okay, and please take some time to read this. For the subsequent chapters, information in such colored sections of the textbook, they are very important as well. Okay, so when you have control of the air and basically the enemy is not able to penetrate that particular airspace, right? Then you can actually fly your planes over and bomb German cities. Now, the purpose of bombing cities aren't exactly a military strategy to defeat your opponent. However, this is more important in terms of morale and also targeting resources again. So if you're able to bomb a particular factory in a German city, then and the factory produces, let's say, weapons or tanks, then you would have actually successfully stopped the enemy quite a bit. Then also, as the example given down here, synthetic oil plants and oil fields. I think it's under the next factor. Okay, when Hitler actually made the mistake of consolidating all his particular resources on this Romanian oil field. And so you just have to target a particular oil field, bomb the shit out of it, and yeah, you're halfway to winning the war. And Allied control over the air and sea, they help them in tactical successes. So basically, this control, this collaboration with the military strategies, helping them to attain control over the air and the sea, it eventually contributed to the final success over Germany, which is called Operation Overlord. This basically is an entire operation to plan to invade Germany. This is where I need the map again. Hmm, hmm, hmm. Okay, I'll get to the map. I think at the end of this particular factor, right? So they plan to invade Germany, and it has to start through France because at that point in time, France was already taken over by Germany. So you need to start from there. So this entire operation is the final operation in which they started the invasion of Germany, and it was successful. Okay, I think this map isn't exactly very good at showing you anything, so I shall show you Google Maps instead. All right, I think that will be better. Right, so basically we're done with the first factor. Right, so let's look at the map. If I'm able to do this. Wonderful. Right, okay, again. Right. Okay, so if you look at Google Maps, right. So the invasion of Germany can't be directly into Germany. So as you can see the borders here, well, if they want to enter Germany, perhaps from this side to enter Germany, but if you want to cross the sea, okay, and come to this area, the shortest distance would be from here, from Britain, all the way over to here, which would be a pretty long distance. And if you have no control of the sea in this area, it will make an invasion extremely difficult. Okay, so the next best option actually is anywhere in this area because France, Belgium, Netherlands, they were all taken over by Germany at that point in time already. So when we say invasion of Germany through France, yeah, you have to start from here and then you go in and then you go all the way towards Germany. Then for Soviet Union, who are on this side, on the right side, they will start the invasion on the right side and attack Germany. So basically, Germany is going to be sandwiched between two enemies who are fighting them. Okay, so Operation Overlord, it's a fascinating operation. There are many details to talk about it, and I think I shall leave them for the next factor. Okay, we'll talk more a little bit more about Operation Overlord and some interesting tidbits and details about this particular operation. All right, and actually that concludes the first part of the chapter, or rather the first factor that contributed to Hitler's defeats in World War II. All right, and you shall await the next factor.